It happens only once every 10 years, and its outcome will directly impact our lives for the next decade. It's the U.S. Census. Why your participation is so crucial in this edition of ASTA. Be counted. That's the theme of this decade's census in Las Cruces. Hello and welcome. I'm Udalvi Hill, and our guest for this edition of ASTA is Oscar Arriaga with the U.S. Census. Oscar, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Udal.
Okay, so let's begin with the basics. What exactly is the census?
It's a chance to everybody be counted once every 10 years. So it's finally here, 2020 census. It's a time for the community, for the city, for the states to plan for the future. And this is the time to do it.
So how much of a population shift or a demographic shift do you anticipate may happen from 10 years ago?
Oh, I mean, we see a lot of people out in the streets. We see a lot of people, new households being built. And you could tell over time, I mean, in comparison from 2020 to 2010, it's a big difference. We see it all the time, but this is the time where we could take that accurate count, know how many people are living in the United States, and also especially here in New Mexico.
Okay, so one of the biggest things going on beyond the census right now is the current coronavirus situation. How is that impacting the census?
Well, at the U.S. Census Bureau, of course, we are monitoring that situation. We are working in guidance and very closely with the national, the state, and the local health authorities. We follow their guidance of what they want us to do. Two of the key principles that we work with in our efforts is first to keep our census workers and of course the American public with their safety.
Yeah.
The safety of everybody, of all the health concerns, of any type of virus, that's a top priority. Also, second is at the same time we have to do our constitutional duty of delivering our 2020 results, our count to the president at the end of our operations. And we're trying to do both together. So right now is a great time for everybody that may be at the house, at home, to fill out that census online, paper questionnaire, the different forms, the different methods that are there. They're at home, they can do it, and it just takes a few minutes.
Okay, now I did get my letter in the mail.
Oh, great.
I have the code, how to do it
Okay.
online, and so I'm going to do mine online.
Mm-hmm.
So, and phone, is phone also an option?
Yes.
For folks that can do it, so online, by phone, by paper, which is by mail, right?
Correct.
And then you do have census workers who go door to door, right?
Correct. Of course. So yes, by phone, as you had mentioned, the person they don't speak English. We have the Spanish option.
Good point.
Also, not only that, but we have other 12 languages that are provided, and that may be in Chinese, Japanese, French, Russian, just to name a few. And they could go that way online. It's the first time we do it online.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, census since the first census that we started in 1790. It's been built quite a bit. Just a little historical known fact.
Sure.
In 1790, the census, when it was taken back then, the first time it was done by U.S. Marshals on foot and on horses, going every household, counting each one.
Oh, wow.
That took many months and
No
up
doubt.
to a year. So now in 2020, now it's the option of online. Filling it out has never been easier than before. We didn't have that in 2010.
Right.
And of course, they could always do, if they don't have that access to the internet, they could always do it on phone, as I had mentioned, or they could wait for the paper questionnaire to come in and fill it out on paper.
Okay, so two things. First off, online, and of course, everyone's concerned about cybersecurity right now.
Right.
How secure is taking the U.S. Census online?
Very secure, very safe. The U.S. Census Bureau works, we are bounded by the Title 13 of the U.S. Code, and that gives us the authorization to do our work. But more than that, it gives the protection and the safeguards for all the information that we gather from everyone. For example, when they do it online, all the information is encrypted, and when it gets into our systems, and we keep it, we lock it. Just the same if it's by the phone, our representatives do it once they enter all the information into our system. Of course, it's logged, it's encrypted, and also when they do it on paper questionnaire, once all our representatives, again, they put it into our system, that paper is shredded It's gone. It's deleted. We don't deal with that anymore. So all the information is safeguarded. Also, it's so safeguarded that we keep that information. We hold on tight to it, that we don't provide it to any local enforcement agency. Also to any department, and I'm talking about the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Central Intelligence Agency, the Homeland Security, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. We don't provide that information. And also, the census information that you provide, it will never be used against you in the court of law.
So if somebody is here, say they're undocumented and they're living in a residence, can they take the census?
Yes.
And are they encouraged to?
Yes, very much so, because they are residents of the United States. So they don't have to worry of if they are a citizen or a non-citizen of the United States, because they are residents, and we want that population, especially them, because in 2010 they may have been afraid of being counted, or even the years before, decades past. But now, of course, there's not that question of citizenship on the census, so they don't have to worry about that. And again, like before, we don't provide it to any agency, to no immigration authorities. So it is recommended, highly recommended, that they do count themselves when they receive the information. If they don't understand it, because maybe it's in English, they can call the number that's on it once they receive the paper, the questionnaire, the invitation in their household. They can call and they can speak to someone in Spanish to help them fill out that questionnaire.
Great. So I guess, is it fair to say that the purpose of the census is more to count the number of people who are here regardless of how they got here or what their current status, immigration or citizenship status is?
Yes.
They're just in the country and we want to know they're here, but it's all secure. That information is only for the census purposes.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to reiterate that. And you made a very good point of saying that, but I just want people to hear it again. Okay, so I want to go back to another point where we're talking about door-to-door. There's a door-to-door contact with census. What is that contact intended for, and how does somebody know that whoever that person is, in fact, officially representing the census?
Well, by the time, as people get the invitation, they fill out the questionnaire. If they don't fill it out online, they don't fill it out on paper, or they don't make that phone call, and like you said, before that you received the invitation, so we wait a few weeks. They get a reminder letter. If they still don't fill it out, they get a postcard. If they still don't fill it out, that's when they get the paper questionnaire. If they still don't, needless to say, they still yet don't fill it out, that's when the census taker arrives to their home to help them fill it out. And of course, to avoid that census taker to arrive to their home, we just want them to fill it out beforehand. But if that census taker arrives, they will have a badge, pretty much like mine, that identifies them with a picture ID, with the U.S. Department of Commerce that's on it. They will have a laptop. They will introduce themselves. And if people do feel uncomfortable, they can always call. We do have a phone number on the Census website to see if that is someone from the U.S. Census, or they could call their local police also. But only the census takers will only visit those homes that have not answered. And that's why we recommend everybody to answer.
Okay, so while April 1st is the day, you can do it long before then. Like I say, I got my invitation already. I can do it now or after this interview, and it'll all be done.
Yes. Also, of course, when the invitation came in, I'm sure you saw the census ID that you had to fill in.
Yes.
Some people, maybe when they got that initial invitation, they may have lost it in the mail. They probably thought it was maybe junk mail, or their kids threw it out or something. And that's fine. That's why we send reminder letters throughout the following weeks.
And that's a good point, because I did get two. So
you did? Okay.
I had the same number, but I did get two. So.
And if you don't have that number, that census ID, that's fine. Not to worry, because you can fill it in just using your address. The census ID, of course, to make the process much easier, but that's fine. If not, just with your physical address that you put in there of your household, you can continue filling out that questionnaire.
Okay, and then so counting children is extremely important, right? We just don't want to know who the adults are, but people 18 and under also.
Yes, everybody in the household. Children, of course, that's a major people that we want to be counted of 5 and under, and also newborns, babies also to be counted. Everybody. Also, not only them, but if they have someone else living in their households, say, for example, other children that they may be taking care of from other families, grandmas, grandpas, in-laws that may be living, cousins, uncles, aunts, brothers that may be living in that household, or even maybe that space in their household that they may be renting to someone else. The garage or another room that they're renting, and there's someone living there, or maybe there's a family of 3 or 5 or living there, they need to be counted for that household.
Excellent. That's a good point. So it's not just the nuclear family, it's the extended family and even maybe non-family members who happen to be staying there.
Yes, everybody under that one roof.
Okay, very good. So let's talk dollars now. One of the things the census is very important for is to get our share of federal dollars. Can you give us an idea of how much per person we're looking at if we don't fill it out? How much do we tend to lose here in New Mexico per person by not filling out the census?
Yes, that's very important. Of course, that's where the filling out the census, it determines the amount of federal funding that comes back to the state, comes back to our county, here to the city of New Mexico. So it determines, and I'm talking about billions of dollars per year for the next 10 years. And that's billions per year. Again, when I say that, sometimes people think it's for the whole 10 years, but it's per year for the next 10 years. And here, and of course, in Las Cruces, it's an average of about $37,450 that they will lose per person for the next 10 years.
That's a lot of money.
That is.
And so where does that money go? So we talk about losing it, but in what form do we lose it? Is it through social programs?
Yes.
Give us an idea of what that funds.
As the population is being counted, those federal funds that come back to the city, to the county, those are the federal funds, and the money is allocated to use for the school districts, to use for the social services that we have here, special project services for the emergency medical service also. Sometimes when we go to work, the road that we use to go to work, that sometimes we don't know, but to build that one road was derived with the census data. They use the census data for the planning of that road, for the construction, and finally it's there. So, but it was beforehand, it was used from the census data. Just also as parents, when they go to school and they drop off their children to school, the school districts they allocate that federal funds that's provided to them for the school lunch assistance, for the after-school programs, for the teacher instruction. Our daily lives are impacted by these services that we have, and it all derives from the census data.
Boy, that's a good way of breaking it down. From driving to work or your children to school to the very meal that they eat, all stems back to the census, which is why it's so important, because if too many of us opt not to participate in the census, a lot of those programs and services go away. They'll just disappear.
Right, and this is the only time to do it. This is the only time we have until the end of July to be counted. If once August, September rolls out and they weren't counted, it's not like we can go back. There's no do-overs. We can't say, oh, let's start again, or I forgot this 1-2% of the people that we didn't count. It has to be done now, because this is now that would affect from 2020 up to 2030.
Yeah, that's a long time. And that's a long time to do without if we don't participate in the census now.
Yes.
That's a real good point. Okay, so representation in Washington is also tied directly to the census, and that is our direct voice to Congress and to the president. Tell us how that works.
Yes, of course. The census also, it's about fair representation in the political aspect, because this determines the number of seats that are for the House of Representatives. So if more people are counted, more in the population, that's a bigger opportunity to have that voice represented in Congress. And also what it does, also the U.S. Census count, what it does, it redraws the boundaries of the congressional districts, the state legislative districts, and the school districts. So it shifts with its population. It adapts to the population where it is, so it redraws its boundaries again. So it's important because, of course, we have that political representation, and the school districts may be redrawn, the state's legislative districts, all that is all, again, derived from the census.
And that's a good point, because our city council districts, we have 6.
Oh.
Those are gonna be redrawn also to more equitably distribute the population. The goal is to have a similar number of people in each of the 6 council districts, so that's gonna happen also. That's a
Yes.
good point.
Yes, correct. So that's why we want that fair representation for each district.
Okay, so right now, we have 3, we're represented by 3 Congress people in Washington. Depending on how the census comes out and the increase in population, that could give us another seat in Congress, which is one more voice in Washington to try to get even more resources our way.
Correct. That's why we want everybody to be counted, and babies, newborns, children, veterans, elderly, families, and non-U.S. citizens. Everybody that's living in the U.S.
Good, okay, that's a
Yes.
good point. Okay, so just to recap briefly, so we have until April 1st, including April 1st.
Right.
And tell us again the methods that we can take the census.
Right now, of course, online. That's the biggest thing that we have. It's the first time that we do it, so they could go that way, and it's only about 10 minutes.
Okay, good to know.
I even had some people already tell me that they did it in 5 minutes.
Wow.
And that was a big family that they told me, because they put in the names, the age, the sex of the person that lives in the household. They did all that in 5 minutes. So that's the fastest way. And of course, they can make the phone call, different languages, Spanish, and other 12 languages that's offered to them. And also, if they want to wait and they want to just a few more weeks, they'll receive that paper questionnaire. They could fill it out and send it back through the mail, and that's another way.
Okay, and just to be sure, you won't be counted twice if you say you take it online, then you fill out the paper ballot. Somebody's gonna catch that, I imagine.
Yes, we
Okay,
we-
so as desperately as we want people to participate, just do it one time.
yes,
right?
to be
Okay.
counted once, only once, and in the right place.
Okay. Do you have anything else to add? Any other points you want to make to the public?
No, I just want to say right now, of course, once you receive that questionnaire, go online, do it, because now is the moment to change and make plans for their community and here for Las Cruces.
Okay, wonderful. Oscar Arriaga with the U.S. Census, thank you very much for joining us and for all your helpful information. And please take the census.